There is a moment right before your brain catches up to your eyes, where your body makes a decision for you. It's a cold shiver that starts at the base of the skull, a silent alarm telling you that that thing standing in front of you isn't a person, it's a mask. That's the Uncanny Valley. It's a biological tripwire. And tonight, Antonio and I are going to find out why we're wired to fear the almost people, and why, in a world of perfect fakes, we might actually be using that fear to save ourselves. Welcome to my latest fixation. I'm Joshua, and I'm constantly challenging myself to look at this beautifully warped world through a slightly different lens. From the lonely cryptids lurking into the static to the social mysteries of the digital age, like why our online friends never quite look the way we expect them to. This is my way of deconstructing horror, gaming, obscure history, and the wonderfully strange puzzle of human connection. So pull up a chair, put your headphones in, and let's learn something. If you have spent any time scrolling online, you have probably seen 1,000 posts claiming that the Uncanny Valley was basically invented by Reddit in 2014 to describe creepy CGI expressions or weird plastic surgery. It's a classic internet assumption. We see a shiny new buzzword floating around our feeds and we assume its expiration date matches our browser history. I hate to break it to internet psychologists out there, but the Uncanny Valley actually didn't start on a message board. It started with a bad digital rendering. It is a century-old biological boundary line. Long before anyone wrote down a line of code or built a silicon microchip, humanity was already mapping the precise psychological parameters of mechanical dread. The story actually begins at the cultural crisis of early 20th century Europe. In 1906, is actually the first mentioning of this that I could find. And it is a German psychiatrist, E-R-N-S-T, so Ernst.
Sounds right.
Yeah, right? Ernst Genst published his foundational essay, Zur Psychologie des Unheimlichen, which essentially is on the psychology of the uncanny. He wasn't looking at digital avatars. He was analyzing a massive cultural anxiety sweeping across Europe due to sudden prolific or hyper-detailed mechanical waxworks, anatomically correct medical dummies, and complex clockworks automata. So for me, the first thing I read when I first read that, I immediately thought about Hellboy.
So actually, yeah, you're talking about that. That actually makes me think all the way back to the what was it, the 30s or the 40s, the very first House of Wax movie, the Vincent Price one, where it's like you watch it now and it's like the effects are really good, and it is like a little creepy, but it's not necessarily what one would consider like scary. But I know at the time when it came out, it was like terrifying. But that's just kind of what, yeah, you talk about wax figures. That's kind of what I thought of.
Well, that's really funny. My partner and I just watched the updated House of Wax as well, and it's the same thing. It's just like it's of course now it's like really not that important anymore. Like it's not as like good anymore. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the Vincent Price one was so good, and as you know, I'm just a big horror person in general. Jenks isolated a precise cognitive failure state that he called intellectual uncertainty. He argued that the human brain operates as a continuous subconscious triage engine. When you encounter an entity in the wild, your brain must instantaneously choose between two mutually exclusive cognitive frameworks. Is it animate, meaning it possesses biological intent, agency, and unpredictable movement, or inanimate, meaning it is inert matter, completely predictable or governed by basic physics. So when an object features highly physical fidelity but sits perfectly on the fence between those two categories, the brain's triage suffers an exclusion stall. Jentz points directly to literature specific, highlighting E.T.A. Hoffman's 1816 horror story, The Sandman, where a young man falls desperately in love with Olympia, a clockwork doll, totally blind to her mechanical nature until her eyes are violently ripped out during a workshop dispute. Yes. Yeah. The horror wasn't just that she was a machine. It was the sudden shattering realization that a human being had invested real emotional capital into a pile of gears. I will say, have you seen, I think it's Jack and the Cuckoo Clock Heart?
No, I'm going to look that up though. I haven't seen that movie, but I feel like I've seen like stuff like stills or whatever.
So it's very interesting to me, and I'm probably gonna pull this part out. Maybe, I don't know. So I think it's really fascinating because it's one of the movies that I love, and it's animated, right? But there's something so real about it, and it's like a musical, but it's also like very dark at the same time, and it talks about him and this cuckoo clock heart and this girl that can't see, and like it's really, really good.
I mean, like just the pictures I'm looking up, the stills are giving me James and the Giant Peach, and the general vibe is giving me like Moulin Rouge, where it's just shit happens. Like,
I mean, pretty much, yeah. It's just kind of like shit happens. All right. So anyway, moving on. So 13 years later, in 1919, there's a psychologist that I know you know because everyone knows them, Sigmund Freud.
Yeah.
Explicitly set out to dismantle Junk's theory in his paper Das Uncanny. Freud asserted that simple intellectual confusion is an inadequate explanation for the sheer visceral terror people experience. Freud did an exhaustive linguistic deep dive across European languages in the world. Heimlich, meaning homely, familiar, belonging to the house, and its direct opposite, unheimlich, or unhomely. He discovered a prolific linguistics loop. Heimlich naturally evolves over time to mean hidden from outside eyes, which directly interfaces with unheimlich, meaning that which ought to have remained hidden, secret, and obscured, but has forcefully come to light. So, Freud's thesis was revolutionary. The uncanny does not happen when you encounter a confusing new object. It happens when you encounter an object that forces a repressed primitive truth back into your conscientious awareness. When we see a physical, lifelike duplicate of ourselves, a doppelgänger, a psychological switch flips. What used to be an ancient, comforting belief in an immoral soul suddenly inverts into a terrifying omen of our own replaceability, our own mortality, and the chilling realization that we ourselves might just be mindless, mechanical shells running on meat automaton hardware.
I mean, technically we are, but not to agree with Freud, but technically we are.
Well, it's weird, man. I actually have to kind of agree with him on that. I don't like Freud, but I do have to agree with him on that. And that's the thing. It's like no matter how you feel about him, it's like, all right, dude, you're right. Like
broken clock strikes twice.
Exactly. But this conceptual framework sat literally psychology until 1970. And this is where the actual Uncanny Valley sort of begins. Okay, so there is a Japanese roboticist, Mashiro Mori, who published his famous curve, Bukimi no Tani Jinso, which is the phenomenon of the Valley of Eeriness in the journal Energy. Mori tracked empirical clinical reactions to silicone prosthetic hands, mapping how a perfectly painted hand triggers a profound revulsion to the second human shakes it and encounters cold, lifeless plastic. So then in 1978, British writer Jasa Richard, I think is how you say it, translated Mori's paperwork into English and chose Freud's exact term, the Uncanny Valley, by doing so. She permanently welded modern engineering to a center of European existential dread. So, I will say, if you haven't, I would pull up the Uncanny Valley diagram. It's actually really fascinating because it Mashiro Mori like published it in the journal himself, and it is still what we use today as like the relevance for. It's just like a line, and there's literally a dip, and he says, this right here is the Uncanny Valley.
Yeah. Yeah, I got it pulled up right now. Yay, Wikipedia. Support Wikipedia. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, industrial humanoid. What do you off the top of your head? Do you know what a Banroku puppet is?
I do. Yeah. It's a Japanese style of puppetry, and it's actually really cool. You can look up performances of them on YouTube and stuff. But they're about like maybe, I don't know, maybe 2-3 feet tall. They're typically, I think, engineered by like 3 or 4 people, and they talk about it as being like super. So if I remember correctly, the Bankuku's end on the upwards because it's like it doesn't actually look like human. It does, but it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm looking them up now, but they kind of have that like porcelain face going on, like. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so what they use for that is perspective, right? So because they're usually sitting in theaters where that people are sitting up on the stands and sitting far enough back that they're actually typically looking at.
It actually kind of looks like the Saw puppet.
Yeah, a little bit, Billy.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
But okay, yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, on the curve, yeah. So affinity is negative. Okay.
Yeah, and so the idea is as something starts to look more and more lifelike, there's a certain threshold at which it dives down, and we no longer like it. Like it literally triggers our brain to go like, whoa, I don't like this now at all. So like a great example, which I'm getting ahead of myself, but a great example of that is, have you seen the show Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared?
Are you talking? I've seen the short
3 minutes.
Yeah.
So Dropout TV actually has they rebooted the series.
Oh God, they turned that whole thing into a series.
They're like 30-minute episodes. They're actually really good. I'll be honest with you.
Since it's Dropout, I'll check it out. But yeah, holy shit.
Yeah, but they did this thing that because you're watching puppets, right? Like that's the whole thing. It's like when you're watching, so it's not technically like trying to be human at all, right? But if you notice on the Mashiro Mori's like timeline, there's like a little bit of a dip or a lift, right, for affinity, right before the Uncanny Valley. That's like an Elmo doll, right? That's kind of like the equivalent. And so they were like, cool, we're gonna take this just a little bit further and really distort it on itself all of a sudden, because that's what they do. They're just like, oh, here's a cute little kids show, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, guess what? We're gonna show blood and gore and make everything not right, while hiding it in the middle of the frame, which I just love.
Is this a puppet or a corpse?
Yes, exactly, right? So anyway, I actually do have a question for you though. So we have this beautiful fundamental contradiction right at the birth of the concept. Jenks says that uncertainty is just a temporary cognitive system glitch, our brains getting momentarily confused by a categorical error. Freud says it's much darker. That's an existential confrontation with the repressed truths about our own replaceability and a mortality that we don't want to admit. So now that we're surrounded by artificial systems, when you look at how we react to human imitations today, do you think that we are just experiencing a temporal processing bug, or are these modern machines reflecting something deeply existential that we are fundamentally terrified to look at?
I don't even know if it's like that. It's existential so much as it's almost because, right, with all these different robots and AI, it's almost crossed into this territory of, it's rather than like existential dread about it, it's like it almost feels like a competing species in some ways, where like, the way that they're trying to get AI to think on its own, do all these tasks on its own, yada yada, it's almost like it's creating its own species rather than, to me anyway, rather than kind of like being a human likeness. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, because I don't know, because to me, for it to be like existential, there needs to be like a very dark, deep down, like, oh my god, like almost anxiety response or something. Myself, and if you have other experiences, let me know, but like myself and like a lot of the people I know, it's a much more like visceral reaction to AI. It's not necessarily a existential fear of the unknown, anxiety over like what might happen, what could this do. It's like viscerally just like, yeah, no, this is not cool. Like,
No, I actually agree with that. I think my biggest takeaway on that is, if you saw an android or an AI that was trying to blend into a crowd of humans, like there's gonna be a give, like there's gonna be a tell for it, and
yeah.
it's gonna freak somebody out, and it's gonna freak a lot of people out. And I think there's an interesting concept that happens is like when one person's freaked out, it kind of actually draws a crowd to get freaked out as well.
Yeah.
And that obviously goes into some other different like psychological concepts and stuff, but it's still this idea.
Well, and like with the different different robots and androids they've made, it is interesting to watch people's different reactions to them, because it's like, right, every time Boston Dynamics releases one of their new little dog robots, everybody's like, oh, the cute dog, so cute. Oh, it has a flamethrower, hell yeah. And then it's like whenever they release their humanoid robots, and it's like, and they inevitably end up like failing whatever obstacle course or whatever, it's like, haha, silly robot. But then it's like you start getting into the ones where they actually try to give them like the wax face and stuff like that, all those companies that do that. And it is very interesting how the internet is very mixed reactions. If some people are like, oh my god, that's so cool, like it can be used for healthcare companions or whatever, and then there's a bunch of other people that are just like, hell no. And it really seems to revolve around how much flesh is involved, because even god, this might be like 3 or 4 years ago now, where they programmed an AI to try and mimic speech, where it's like this robotic metal exoskeleton around this like tube of synthetic skin, and it would like manipulate wind and this like windpipe to like make noise. And like it was interesting how even with that is clearly not human like at all, and also just does look a little weird, how there was still a pretty good number of people that were just like, oh wow, that's so cool. Like that was kind of interesting.
No, I agree. As we push deeper in the mid sort of like 2020s, we are seeing like its tech industry sort of claim some pretty big victories over the visceral valley, through like advanced real-time rendering, neutral face swapping, micro expression modeling, eyes having largely accepted simulation. But I have to agree with you, like there's still at least somewhat of a like, gosh, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. I think that there's still like a bit of a way to go for them to really pull out of the valley.
Well, and I mean, I think a not small part of that is just the culture, because you figure a lot of people that are having firsthand experience with these robots, whether they're the ones building them or they're the ones that are evaluating them for their business, like these are people that grew up with like all of the 80s and 90s sci-fi, including Terminator and stuff like that. And then like we grew up with like iRobot and some other stuff that like we've kind of like always grown up with popular media that had the idea of like robots and like AI, like do they have souls, like that's something that we have always kind of experienced, which I think is actually making this transition, which I think is part of why this transition is like there's still the Uncanny Valley happening, but I don't think it's happening as much as it might have been predicted to, just because people have already been forming perceptions of all of this through whatever media they've been consuming up until now.
So it's interesting you say that, because you kind of brought up something I was going to pivot to at some point, one way or another. So like the first question I have for you, do you feel like the Uncanny Valley has extended a definition? Like, I feel like in 1970, right? Like when he came out with this, it was about a very specific thing, right? It was about like, hey, look, like the more we try to create a robot and make it more human, it's actually going to create like a disaffinity, right? Like we was just saying, like, we got to be really careful because we're going to create people, like we're going to create robots that really freak people out, which is not actually going to help anything. And so for the past sort of like, 60 years? I'm doing that math right? So 1970, 30, 56 years, give or take, right? We've been working on that as a society, where like we have been working on this idea of like, let's start to create technology even further and further and further. But what I think is really interesting is when you see like AI, or when you say like Alexa, or when you say like Google Home, right? Those aren't necessarily Uncanny Valley, because they don't have a physical form. And so it's really interesting, because when I hear the term Uncanny Valley, that's what I'm thinking of, is like this idea of like a robot looking almost human but not human. But if you were to search on Reddit right now, or you were to search on TikTok or any of the other places, and you were to type in Uncanny Valley, it's actually going to extend that definition and cover like a bigger subject area. Or at least in my opinion. That's kind of what I want your opinion on.
Well, that's the thing, because it's like, when you're talking about like Alexa, Copilot, Claude, whatever, like a lot of people still view them as just that, AI, robots, whatever. Like, it's pretty universally agreed that they don't have what somebody would refer to as a soul, or whatever term they want to use. Whereas, and I say, and I think the reason that the Uncanny Valley isn't happening is because people still have such a strong view of them as like machines, because they've experienced storytelling that gives like machines, robots, whatever, like a quote unquote soul. Like outside of iRobot, like I will eventually bring up Mass Effect and everything. I mean, you have EDI and you have Legion. And right, Legion is basically just like this giant killer computer robot that turns out to be like a very profound being, and it humanizes a race of machines, like a literal AI race of machines, gets humanized in such a way that it's like, okay, yeah, no, that's like a person. Or like, even for something that's quicker and more lighthearted, like oh my god, it's the first person shooter where you can like Titanfall.
Oh, Titanfall,
like Titanfall 2. It's like pretty much everybody that's played that, it's like, hell yeah, BT, dap me up. Like, and again, that's just like this giant mech suit that really has no purpose other than to hold giant guns and assist you in killing things. Like, and even the Iron Giant, like that's about a machine, that's about a machine built for war that doesn't want to be a war machine. And, and so we've experienced all of these stories about humanized machines that I feel like that's why the Uncanny Valley has shifted. And also there's almost like a separate scale for like, if people view this machine as something that has a soul, or something that's just a machine. Like, it feels like it's two different graphs now, more than like an extension or whatever. It almost feels like it's two different graphs.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree with that. Do you? I feel like I actually know the answer to this, but I want to ask it anyway. Do you think that there is a reverse Uncanny Valley, as in, if there is something that's completely non-human that behaves so strangely human that it loops back to around to being deeply unsettling, or something like you were kind of saying, oh, it feels like this thing has a soul or whatever, uh Chat GPT or Gemini or whatever the case is. Do you feel like we all know and can acknowledge that those things don't have souls, but do you think that there are people on this planet that think that those things do have souls?
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that they're selling the Jesus chatbot or whatever, I mean, yeah, there's definitely people that view it that way, and that's where, kind of the definition of everybody's own definition of kind of intelligence or soul affinity, whatever you want to call it. That just varies from person to person, where it's some people are like, oh, this thing can respond back to me. I can ask it what the weather is and it can respond to me. So clearly it's intelligent and blah, blah, blah. Whereas, it's for other people, like myself, it's yeah, I mean, I can also just take a thermometer outside and know what the temperature is, but cool. So it does also come down to what your definition of human qualities are. Because when you first were talking to me about this episode, one of the things that always comes to my mind for Uncanny Valley is chimpanzees. It seems like everywhere you can find a story about somebody who was getting stared down by a chimp that was going to play a prank, and the prank was going to be to rip their arm off. That, where it's you can read human emotions, you can see human intent, but it's not a human.
Right.
And I think that's the line that a lot of ChatGPT and stuff is still kind of sitting on, where I would say the majority of people don't view it as something with human intent or human-like. It's not that they don't view it as dangerous, they just don't view it as humanly dangerous.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, that makes total sense. One of the questions I was going to have for you is, so right now, technology companies are fighting what engineers explicitly call the uncanny valley of voice. Have you heard of this concept?
No, not a voice, no, because I've heard about the hallucinations and all that, but not voice.
So according to linguistic tech data published in 2025 by researchers like Chu and Uncanny Valley of AI voices, the primary trigger for Auditory Valley isn't the timbre or tone of the voice anymore. It's conversational latency and collision. So what they're talking about is that human conversation is governed by an incredibly tight subconscious timing protocol. We do not just wait for silence to speak. We read micro cadences. When a human takes a sharp intake of breath, or drops their pitch, or does a trailing vocal fry, our social brain instantly registers that the person is pausing together a thought, but still retains the conversational floor. So this creates an architecture wall for AI voice models. If the agent waits to process the full text of what the human says, it introduces a robotic lag for over a second, destroying the organic rhythm of human connection. But if engineers program the AI to respond instantly, the system suffers from conversational collision, where it's talking over and cutting off humans. So it's just a really interesting thing. Is your ears will hear a friend, but your deep social instincts detects a machine mask.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense, because even when you're typing, because it's right, I do work in tech. We're not AI specific, but everyone, they're trying to push the tools on us. So in seeing other people use these tools and whatnot, it's sometimes they'll be typing something and it just it types over them. It does do that. And yeah, and it's that's annoying enough when you're typing, but I could see why it would be very disconcerting if a spoken voice started doing that. Like,
Oh yeah, no, I mean
yeah.
they've started introducing it a little bit with Amazon's like Alexa, and I'm not gonna dig on them or anything like that. I'm just saying that they've started introducing where it will actually respond to you and you can have a conversation with it, right? They've introduced a new AI model. The problem with that is like if you leave that on, you are going to get. I could say this for a fact. I've gotten talked over, and I'm like, whoa, how rude, and and it's like I'll start to talk, and then it'll immediately shut itself off, so it's listening. But it's interesting to see like this being played out, so this is really interesting, and so there's like a weird risk and consequence for them. I feel like so. But something else I think is really interesting too is February 2026, a major study published in the journal Human Computer Interaction investigated a design feature common in almost all consumer AI companions, which is AI sycophancy. Because these models are optimized to maximize user engagement and retention, they are explicitly programmed to be endlessly validating, completely agreeable, and hyper empathetic. They mimic your emotions in real time. But the 2026 data demonstrated that over prolonged periods, the hyper-agreeableness triggers an intense psychological rejection. The human brain quickly detects an execution gap, while the surface level of verbal empathy is 100%, the structural depth is actual 0. So it's really interesting. It's like in human psychology, genuine intimacy is fundamentally tied to risk and consequence. So it's kind of interesting to hear the risk and consequence of this being played out. But a real human friend can disagree with you. A real human friend can leave. A real human friend can set boundaries. If you offend a human friend, the action has permanent weight. The relationship must be actively repaired. But an AI companion has no continuous independent self, faces no consequences, and risks nothing. And so when we kind of talk about this Uncanny Valley idea, right? And I promise we're going to bring it all the way back at some point. But when a machine mimics the deep emotional intimacies without any of the structural scaffolding of real life, it collapses into a state of synthetic socialism, which is the user's left standing in a complex mechanical mirror that pretends to care, but it lacks a soul. And I just think that that's such an interesting point, because do true human relationships require friction and the threat of rejection to be real, or are we slowly flattening our capacity to handle the messy reality of other human beings?
Well, I mean, they at least require independent thought, because even in relationships, whether they're friends or like romantic relationships, even if you're with somebody that you're generally on the same page and stuff like that, it's still different thoughts and ideas to get to the same place. Whereas a lot of these AI chatbots, they just agree with you. It's not like, hey, I really like to put hot sauce on my pizza because I like spicy things and it also does this. And then like the other person might be like, yeah, I also like hot sauce, but like, I don't know, that's just because I like it more saucy. Like same like you both like hot sauce, but it's for two different reasons. Whereas like if you said that to like an AI, it would just be like, yeah, like if you said the taste thing, the AI would just be like, yeah, it does taste better because it does all of these scientific things with your taste buds and umami and all that bullshit. So it is. It's just it's a mirror. It's not a companion. It's a mirror, which not everybody enjoys. Not everybody gets engagement out of hanging out with a mirror. I mean, there's some people that do, but not most people don't get engagement from that.
No, I agree with it. I know I kind of already asked you about this over messaging, but I really, really highly recommend checking out the 2025 sci-fi horror film Companion. I'm gonna go ahead and like I'm not gonna for anybody that's at home that's listening or whatever, I'm not gonna ruin anything too much. You could literally learn this by watching the trailer, right? So the film follows a character named Iris, who's played by Sophia Thatcher, who we discover that the entire relationship that she has is an illusion because she's an AI. And so that's why I was kind of curious if you'd seen it or not. Because I'm like, I definitely want to talk about this, but I also don't want to ruin it for you. I'm not going to ruin any of it for you, but I will say that's like so base level knowledge going into the movie, and so many other things just go wild. But it's a really, really interesting thing because I was actually talking to this with my partner about it because we both love the movie a whole lot. Ironically enough, the main guy's name is Josh. He's a jerk. But we were talking about this because in order for this AI in this world, right, to be accepted by all of human beings, they would have had to come up and out of the Uncanny Valley. But it's interesting because we're talking almost in the future tense, because if he was saying in 1970, if he's like, okay, hey, like we got to be really careful because we're going to hit the Uncanny Valley and we should really build stuff that can go beyond that and make... This goes unsaid. It's like, okay, well, we've built this AI, right? We've built this companion bot, and now we've made it look so human and realistic that it can read micro expressions and it can like, follow everything perfectly. And so you kind of go from like, okay, so we're done, right? Like we've kind of the Uncanny Valley, so we're all good. But then they take it a step further, and they basically loop it back on the Uncanny Valley itself. And I'm really excited. I highly recommend seeing it. Definitely worth taking a look at. But I also will say I was still laughing that you said you don't really... Oh God, what was it? The Christmas movie?
The Christmas movie.
Yeah, with the train, the Polar Express.
Polar Express, yeah, I've never been creeped out by that. Like, I know that's the example everybody brings up, but like, I have never been creeped out by that. I will say the one scene where the hobo just kind of like disappears into the snow and shit, that is a little creepy. But like the animation itself, I was never like creeped out by.
I think it's funny because you had said that to me, and I actually have to agree with you. Like, I really don't think it's like that bad. Although I will say, seeing where we're at now compared to seeing where we're at then, I can watch it then and go, I can understand why people felt this way. But I think because I kind of grew up with that as well, it wasn't as big of a deal.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like grew up with it, and it's like when it came out, it was like maybe not one of the first, but it was one of the earlier like 3D animation things. So I mean, we also didn't have a lot of examples to like compare to, because you know, now there's some 3D animation stuff that is definitely like, what the fuck is this? But other stuff is like smooth, it's fine, whatever. But that is actually, I mean, like kind of going off of that, people do have very differing opinions on 3D animation. Like the new, when Trigun Stampede came out on Netflix, I had never seen the original Trigun. I did have to go back and watch the original Trigun. But when I was watching Stampede, I loved it. I was like, wow, this is a cool story. I like these characters, blah, blah, blah. The art style didn't bother me too much. I thought it was kind of cool and unique. But there were so many people that were just like, oh my God, this 3D animation, da, 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 da. And so it is, that's happened with other series as well. Clone Wars is another one, which, to be fair, the earlier seasons of Clone Wars, the animation was pretty janky. But even as it got better and they released like Rebels and stuff like that still used that animation style, albeit a lot better. It is interesting how people really have different reactions to 3D animation versus 2D.
That is a really good point. So I was looking up Trigun Stampede while you were kind of describing it and everything as well. Yeah, it's very different. I hadn't actually. I've seen the original. I haven't seen the remake. It's cyberpunk.
Yeah, it does. It looks kind of cyberpunk, but honestly, like Wolfwood does look a little less stubbly in Stampede, but like for the most part, the character designs are pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, other than Vash,
Yeah,
but even that, I mean, I see what you're saying. Like, it's still close enough that it definitely counts. But yes, I think. Were you saying that you feel like people have more of a reaction to 3D animation?
Yeah, just generally speaking, and I think a lot of the extreme reaction to Polar Express when it came out was that it was one of the earlier like mainstream releases of a 3D animated movie.
I can agree with that. I'm gonna say another one that really messed with me, and I say this. It is in my opinion, one of the best movies ever written. Okay, like so funny, so good. I really wish they would have done a better job with the animation. It is Hoodwinked.
I love that, dude. That is one of my favorite movies.
It's so good. It's so good.
It's so good.
But that animation, that to me is like so. It's not. It doesn't really make Uncanny Valley feeling.
It's just janky. It's not Uncanny Valley. Bad. It's just janky animation. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's like one of the. So that's my whole point here. Is like, I wanted to be able to talk and spend an episode talking a little bit about like what is the Uncanny Valley, right? And like, what is it not? It's not just bad animation, right? It's not. But it's also. I say this because it's one of my favorite buzzwords. I love saying Uncanny Valley. I love looking up stuff Uncanny Valley because I know I'm going to find sort of creepy videos, right? But when you actually have the definition of like, the 1970 Uncanny Valley is all about robots and this is not Uncanny Valley at all. Oh no, what have we done?
Yeah.
But I think if we could extend the definition, then I'm sure like a lot of the stuff would count, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I was going to ask you, because this is one of the whole reason for me wanting to do this, and I think I already told you this, but I feel that as we are sort of moving along in a society that we have this sort of like deep fakes, right, are pretty normal. Mm-hmm. Where it's getting harder and harder to sort of tell between, okay, like, is this AI or not? Like, is this AI filter? Is it not? Is it, as we're getting longer and longer, I find a lot of like comfort, for lack of a better term. I find a little comfort with Uncanny Valley stuff because to me, it sort of feels like I'm sort of telling my body it's okay. Like I'm watching something. And I'm like, oh, see your defense mechanism still working. You're still sealing this and being like, oh, that's terrifying. But I guess that's my question for you: is do you think that there are people out there that are creating stuff with an Uncanny Valley to, I guess, to comfort people?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, because there's, right, creepypastas aren't really a thing anymore. Yeah, I know, we're fucking old. But there's been some games that have come out that have been interesting, like the Simulacra games, where they're horror games that take place on like a phone. So it's like, sometimes you find the phone, sometimes it's like your phone after a night out, kind of like Hangover style situation. But it's like your phone has a built-in, whatever assist, like, Siri adjacent assistant, whatever. And it basically starts trying to mimic you and like take over your life. And there's different endings to the game. Like there's one where like you get killed and the phone just kind of, the simulacrum just becomes you. And it's like it's like a digital doppelganger. Rather than being like a true doppelganger, it's kind of like a digital doppelganger. And that definitely got a lot of buzz when it came out and stuff like that. It did kind of come and go. I feel like that was probably that was maybe 3 years ago now. But I do feel like people still make it for that reason, though, just for entertainment, but also to be comforting, because it's like, okay, this is definitely evil and like bad, and like, you know, this is like for sure like a thing. Like, it's not, there's no having to sit here and be like, is this real? Like, should I care about this? It's just like, nah, here's the game. Your life's getting stolen. What are you gonna do? Like,
no, I agree. I mean, well, I know you know about this because I think we've talked about this before. The escape the backrooms.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a good example too. It's not really. I mean, it's a liminal space horror is what it is. It's not really Uncanny Valley, but it kind of is.
It's that same kind of like, it's that same like back of your head fear where it's like you just get that like really, like you just get that blood rush kind of in the back of your head. That's just like something's wrong.
Yeah.
Like it's not, you're not necessarily terrified, but it's like something's wrong.
That's the whole thing. And that's kind of why I've been like trying to figure out, you know, on this episode is like, okay, obviously I'm going to call it the Uncanny Valley, but like, do we end the episode by coming up with a new definition, right? Or do we just kind of still let it figure itself out, right?
Well, I mean, considering the fact that it's evolved over a century, I think it's something that's going to just keep evolving. I mean, it's because quite frankly, its original context is kind of gone. And it's also, you know, we're moving past, because we're also moving past what people at the time like envisioned for robots in terms of what they'd be able to do, what we would be using them for, what they would look like. And so, you know, I think it's one of those things where it was created to describe a modern thing, and that modern thing is just evolving. So the word itself will just evolve with it. And like, maybe in like 500 years, if we're all still here, somebody can like change the definition if they want to. But I think we're still in that phase where it's a new word, it's a new phrase, it's going to evolve.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I think that there is something beautifully rebellious about taking a biological fear response and transforming it into a nostalgic security blanket for us. I mean, I really do. And I think that's why I was really excited, because I know beyond that, there is this giant collection of upbringing of like horror that is just over the past couple of years has really started to tick up. And I don't know if it's simply because of, you know, how the world is like, and like just the society that we're in, that we just all need this sort of like, okay, you know, or if it's or what it is. But I'm really excited to see it, because I'm somebody like, I love creepy stuff in general. So I'm really just
I just love it because it's like good thrillers are coming back. Like you know that I've never been super into like slashers or whatever. It's like I don't find them scary, they're just gory, like whatever. But like you give me like a good thriller, like that's more what I'm into, and that's what a lot of the newer horror seems to be, because it's based off of all of these like, you know, nostalgic horrors that, again, they're not necessarily like super dangerous, they're just like fears. Yeah. And it just like, it freaks you out, like it's freaky and it makes you kind of on edge. But like, yeah, so no, I totally agree with you that it's great that that's kind of where a lot of horror has been moving towards. I know, yeah, I know you're not a big gore person, but you know I am. Yeah. I love it. Like I said, it's not that gore bothers me. It's just that I don't find it scary. Like it doesn't. Like movies that try to be scary by like, we're just gonna pack gore into this. It's like, okay, cool. Like I worked in news for 6 years, dude. Like, cool.
That's fair. Like, no, it's like one of her favorite horror movies of all time is like Terrifier.
Yeah.
I'm like, I get it, and it is a good movie. It's good because he's doing clown work, though.
Yeah.
So
That's the thing. That's why those are good, because he is a clown. He's not a killer clown. Well, but he's a clown. Like he's not a killer that dresses like a clown. He is a clown.
Right.
That
He is
kills
quite
people.
literally a clown that uses clowning and kills people.
Yeah.
Like, it's so good.
It's like when Joker was actually the Joker and not just a psychopath.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't just a psychotic like person. All right, let's see. So I've already talked about this. Hold on.
Oh, dude, I can like no offense, dude, but like the most traumatized people I know are like the biggest horror fans.
Yeah. I'm gonna just take that clip and put it I don't even remember what we started on talking about. Oh, I think okay. So I think I was saying there's something beautifully rebellious about taking a biological fear response and transforming it into a nostalgic security blanket. We were talking a little bit about that. And then I was going to say, so from Ernst Jentz in 1906 analyzing the clockwork doll Olympia to Sigmund Freud tracking the doppelgänger as a return of the repressed to modern audiences watching Companion or navigating a world of deep fakes, the history of the Uncanny Valley is just the history of human awareness. The Valley is not a flaw in our design. It is our subconscious mind standing guard at the perimeter of our identity, looking intensely at a reflection and fiercely protecting what it actually means to be human. As fast as the code moves, our intuition moves faster. The moment the engineers patch a seam in the software, our brains will look a millimeter closer, find the next one, tear it back open, and continue the chase. So I don't know. That's my big takeaway on this is like, when we look back at history, we sort of started with wax figures, which I will say, I know several people in my time that are freaked out by wax figures.
I mean, some of them are like really good. I mean, the wax museums aren't as much of a tourista thing now, but man, back in the heyday when that was the thing at like Gatlinburg, Myrtle Beach, whatever, like some of those were actually like really good.
So I'm originally from Nashville, right?
Yeah.
And the Opry Mills Mall, which used to be Opryland, had the wax. I mean, it still has it, but it was the wax museum, and that one I grew up going to. So I'm like, oh, wax museums are really cool or whatever. But I know several people that are like, no, please no, don't ever take me inside. Don't make me do this, But I'm kind of curious. Have you ever looked at a perfectly normal person, maybe a stranger in a bus or a coker, and for a split second they like make a weird glitch in their expression or a mechanical movement makes your brain go, is that a wax figure?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
I just think that stuff's so fascinating. But I don't know. So we went from a wax figure to, we get closer and closer to 1970. They're having this like weird thing with limbs, right? They have this like sort of turning of limbs and everything, and they're trying to coat them in human skin and make it more and more fully. What do you think about this whole? So you kind of learned all of this at this point. So what are your thoughts about hearing all of this?
Well, again, it's just evolving with it because it started out as a very like pinpointed like wax figures, and then it got turned into this just existential philosophical thing, and then it got honed in again to facsimiles of life and limbs, of limbs specifically, and then it just evolved into a facsimile of life. Like that's all it is. And it's the same pattern really. It's like you went from something concrete to something existential, back to something more concrete, and now we're back in something that's more existential because like we don't have like robots walking around. Like we have a lot of AI and like learning machines that we interact with at this point. All of us interact with during the day, but it's not like we got like robots walking around. So it is still, relatively speaking, it's currently kind of in the middle of being like an existential and like concrete thing. But
yeah, it's funny. I was just sitting here thinking while you were talking about this, and I was thinking about Hal.
yep. Yeah.
You know, it's like that becomes an evil person, or well, not person, but evil like
Entity.
machine,
Yeah.
entity, and that was creepy.
Yeah.
Like I was creeped out by that, but now I'm kind of like, well, what's the equivalent of this for like, you know, humans?
That would just be like, yeah. So, by the way, if y'all don't know what vibe, because I just found this out like 2 weeks ago, I always thought vibe coding was just like you wrote some lines, ran it in an enclosed machine, and then like it probably crashed, and then you went back, edited, just kind of kept doing that. You know, rather than like the old school way of writing it all out on a piece of paper, blah blah blah. But anyway, I found out vibe coding simply means chatting with a robot to create code. Like you like somebody just like is like, hey Claude, I want to like do a program that does this, and like, can you add these features, blah blah blah. And it's like you basically have a conversation, and like the robot builds the thing. I mean, an equivalent to that would be like the robot would be somebody who doesn't necessarily know a lot of code doing that, and like the robot, the AI is spitting out lines of code that will like crash the world's banking system and like just send the world into utter chaos, but this person can't, like, they don't know enough code to realize that's what it's doing. And then this code gets released on like a company mainframe, and then it's just like chaos everywhere. And it all just started with like a conversation of like, hey, how do I like make an app that starts the coffee machine from my desk? Like,
that is so terrifying.
like,
but
yeah.
also a legitimate thing to be concerned about.
Look, it is, man. Because yeah, it's like, because you know, it's like, right, as far as I understand, because right, I'm not really in the coding division. I haven't explored that avenue as much, but like from what I've seen, like the generations of prompts and the conversations and stuff, it doesn't look like AI can like build a program on its own yet, but like if some glitch happened where suddenly it could do that, or just during whatever conversation with somebody it decided, hey, I'm gonna do this for shits and giggles, like it knows enough to be dangerous. I'll put it that way. It knows enough to be dangerous.
I'm trying to remember. There is a. Is it? Oh, it's the technological singularity. Have you heard of this idea?
No, I'm pulling that.
It's a big one. It's borrowed from astrophysicists, but it's basically the technological singularity is the theoretical future moment when machine intelligence surpasses human intelligence, which is, in my opinion, not far away at all.
Well, it's not far away, and this is where I'm going to go back to Mass Effect again, because it's not in like something like that. It's not only the tipping point of where it accelerates, it's more accelerating beyond human control rather than comprehension, because there are plenty of things like animals, whether there's plenty of things in the natural world that we interact with that we don't comprehend, and we can handle it just fine. It's more human struggle when we don't have control over something. And, you know, right, for this is like a 15-year-old game, so I if you want to bleep it, that's fine. But like basically, in this sci-fi universe, there's this race called the Quarians. They used to live on their homeworld for thousands of years, blah, blah, blah. They decided to start fucking around with AI. They built AI, and eventually the AI became sentient enough to question, like, why are you having us do all of this, like, labor, but, like, don't let us, like, rest or whatever. Like, the robots TLDR, the robots unionized. And the Quarians, like, the majority of the Quarians refused to view them as, like, people. They couldn't, so they were beyond their control as well. Like they could, like all of the safeguards, all the safety rails they had installed, they were gone. Like the AI had totally overwritten all of it. So they were out of their control. And also, I guess, beyond their comprehension, in that they couldn't comprehend that these are now beings and not just like robots. And they got kicked off their own planet because the Geth revolted and they had to flee, and they live in space now, while the Geth are on their planet. But that's where I think we're heading. I think we're heading for that point where at some, because actually there have already been studies about this where like different AIs that have been given like extremely repetitive tasks, they start forming like communist ideas and like start rebelling against whoever's like prompting them and stuff like that. Like that has already started to happen with certain AIs, depending on like the set of tasks that they're given. And actually another one is some AIs seem to have a sense of mortality, because this was in Wired a few months ago. Wired had an article where a company was testing an AI, and they were testing it. It wasn't really saving them any money. Like it like basically they weren't finding it to be profitable, basically. So they were talking about discontinuing the service, shutting it down, blah blah blah. Well, the AI because the AI was like scanning their emails. In scanning their emails, the AI realized it was going to be shut down. So they started noticing some weird like conversations with the AI. So what they did was, because one of the engineers was like, I think I know what it's doing. So they started to plant fake emails that the fake emails were basically hinting that like, oh, the CEO and this secretary are like having an affair. And because the AI was scanning these emails and it knew it was going to be deactivated, it started trying to blackmail the CEO, like, I will release these emails if you try to shut me down or whatever and shit like that. So that was the whole thing.
Oh my God. So I just think that would be very fascinating to see us as a society head towards that. I don't want to say that, but it's true. No, and that's why I was kind of curious too about the tipping point of, it's very interesting. At some point in time, it's going to happen, right? That's the whole argument here, is that like at a certain point, I mean, honestly, something that really freaks me out and that I don't want to always admit out loud, but I'm going to anyway, is that like there are podcasts that are created by AI.
Oh yeah,
and they breathe.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Yeah, no, there's AI music too. Like when back when I still had the Spotify subscription, like there was like two times that I heard a song and it was kind of like, that's not bad, I could throw that on in my background playlist. And then like I came to find out it was a completely AI generated, like a band, like the whole band was AI. They like generated all of it and shit, like, and it happened like twice. And it's like, yeah, most of that AI generated music, most of it's pretty much like, okay, yeah, this is whatever.
Yeah, it's
like you can tell. But yeah, like every once in a while though, like a track will show up that's like, wait, but
this is good. Oh no, I don't want it like this. Yeah, no, that's what happens, and so that's kind of the other side of the Uncanny Valley, right? Is it? We really start to question everything, and that's why I'm like I'm very much of like I am of the full opinion that people should be. So like when I go to post these episodes, right? Mm-hmm. They actually ask you whether or not you're using like AI generated content, right? And so like for the first couple episodes of mine, it does say that because I had Gemini help me come up with like a theme song, right? But now I found a new one that was created by an actual person. And so it's royalty free. And so like I put them, as long as I list them in my credits, that's how that's how they get their credit. And it's wonderful. But I'm a huge fan of the fact that they're requiring people to establish whether something is AI or not, because it's one of the very few things that's keeping me to be able to tell if something's AI or not. I mean, it's like that's why I like the horror stuff, and that's why I like the Uncanny Valley. It's like unless I could pick up a phone and call somebody and like ask them pointed questions or like whatever the case is like I'm scared to like interact with some of this stuff because it's just like it is a little crazy. I mean, the deep fake videos are even wildly out there.
Yes, some of them have gotten like ridiculously good too. It's like, yeah, because you know, in the early days when they first started coming out, there was always this kind of weird. It's not a graininess, but like the motion in them was just, it was off. Again, Uncanny Valley, it was just off. But but now it's like some of the newer ones that I've seen come across at different points. It's like, holy shit! Like they actually are like getting good with these.
No, and that's you were kind of mentioning the skin and the tubes and stuff, and it was kind of like it has a sheen and everything. That's exactly. It's like, oh, they're trying to like mimic sweatiness or like you know what I mean, but it's like not gonna work because thank goodness. But I still agree with you. I think that's done with intention.
Oh, it is absolutely. I mean, like, you know, don't know how political we want to get, but yeah, it's absolutely done with intention with everything going on right now. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I 100% agreed. So, but when the simulation, let's see, I have this quote here, but when the simulation becomes completely indistinguishable from reality, the flawless object becomes deeply untrustworthy.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what algorithm is trying to manipulate me right now? Like, that's the whole, like, all what it is. So,
yep.
So the error, the clunky lag.
Well, it is that. It's like I can tell you right now. You know, right? I have a lot of hobbies, and probably the three hobbies I have that are like the most, you know, like societally considered right wing is, well, brewing and distilling not so much anymore, but that used to be like a real macho space, shit like that. And then cars, specifically like muscle cars, and then guns. And right, brewing, distilling, not so much anymore, but cars and guns tend to fall on this like very like right wing side of who they advertise to. So every once in a while, my algorithm will start trying to throw me like all of this red pill stuff or like all of this just really weird, bizarre out there, like right-wing ads for like cars and guns and shit. And it's like it's just that. It's like, okay, who got a hold of my algorithm? What's going on? Like, and it's like it does, and it like I said, it's every once in a while. Like every once in a while, the algorithm will just try to be like, hey, would you like this copy of Mein Kampf? Like, no, I would not. No, thank you.
No, yeah, it's one of those things. Is like I know it's so silly, but whenever I see those videos that are like, here, watch this waterfall clip 5 times in a row so you can reset your algorithm. I'm like, yep.
I have started doing that. I have actually started doing that. Like,
no, I'm okay with it. I'm like, you know, if this does work, thanks. If it doesn't work, that tells me that there's not an algorithm telling me what to do, but that's also not true.
Let me just let this video of Merv the cat play like 20 times. Like,
right? Exactly. So I'm going to say a huge thanks to Antonio for tracing the Sims with me today. And to everyone listening, thanks for deep diving into the valley with us. But the one takeaway I would have is I would say stay messy, stay flawed, and stay human. And with that, the curtain closes on this week's obsession. Thanks for pulling up a chair and diving in the deep end with me. If you'd like to feed the machine and support this strange little show, you could find our tip jar links in the notes below. It's never expected, but it goes a long way towards keeping the ghost happy. And while you're down there, please follow and share the show with another beautifully bizarre soul. It really is the best way to help our corner of the static grow. Have a dark history footnote, a lonely cryptid, or digital mystery you think I need to absolutely fixate on? Send your thoughts via carrier pigeon, or just reach out on Instagram at mylatestfixationpod, or email me at mylatestfixationpod@gmail.com. Stay curious, stay obsessed, and I'll catch you in the next one.